Hello, everyone, and welcome to Underworld Contacts Session 1. I am your host and MC, Dan, otherwise known as Code Marvelous, and I am going to be running this evening the first mission session of our SprawlRPG campaign. Sprawl is a fantastic RPG by Hamish Cameron. I'm going to put links in the show notes. Make sure you check it out. It's a fantastic mission-based cyberpunk RPG. Joining me, I have 4 players who are going to help me bring the world of Android to life in this RPG, and we're going to do our very first job. So I'm going to let the players introduce themselves, and then we're going to get right to the action.
Hi, I'm Derek. I play Harlan. He's a bioroid infiltrator.
Hi, yeah, I'm Ryan. I'm going to be playing Silver. He is a killer. Very large, Bane-looking guy, and hopefully going to get to kill some people.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm playing Analog. She's a hacker with a day job at the Space Elevator Authority.
Hi, I'm Patrick. I'm playing as Trank, who is a fixer and is a bit of a boy of the streets, I guess.
Yeah. Fan of psychoactive substances.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it, yeah.
And very briefly, Derek, would you mind reminding people who might be coming in fresh what a bioroid is, just very simply?
A bioroid is one of the 2 forms of android in the Netrunner universe. Just say Android universe.
Just say Netrunner.
That's fine. The other type of android are clones, but bioroids are your classic robot. Their minds are made through brain taping of living human minds, which are then customized and reprogrammed. Harlan is a little bit of an odd duck in that he is self-owned. He doesn't have a regular master or owner. He is on his own.
Nice. Perfect. So, when you run a session of the Sprawl, everything is based around the idea of the mission, the job, right? You're all cyberpunk professionals in the noir future trying to either moonlight or scrape out a living doing these missions. So we start each session, and I think based on the time constraints that we have, what we're probably going to end up doing is most of our jobs will be 2-part episodes, where we'll do one session from like 9 to 11 EDT, where it'll be legwork, and then another 2-hour session where it will actually be the proper mission. That way we're not going to try to condense what would normally be a 3 to 4 hour session in one 2-hour time slot. So, our first mission that we as a group have decided to pursue is going to come down the pipe. Now, all of you have worked together, maybe not as a whole group, but you've all worked together in some capacity, as we established in episode 0, which you can find in the same playlist as this episode. It's also on both Twitch and YouTube, where you can see the setup and backstory episode. But this is the first time that you guys have really been all contacted as a group. And Trank, you receive a message on your pad that a contact that you've tried to develop a relationship with for a long period of time has reached out to you and wants to arrange a meetup for a job. That contact is Miss Ultraviolet, a notable... I guess in this case it would be called being a Mrs. Johnson. So if you're familiar with that idea in cyberpunk mythos, it's the idea of somebody who's a nameless intermediary between the legitimate money that pays for the jobs and the usually illegal people that perform the jobs, so that both sides have a firewall, no pun intended, between them as far as implication and consequence. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So, Miss Ultraviolet runs a club named Prism, and she wants you to come to the VIP room sometime this evening to speak about an opportunity that she thinks that your crew would be perfect for.
Okay.
So, is anyone going to join him in any kind of information gathering or security capacity?
I think Silver should go just as bodyguard.
All
Yeah,
right.
I don't
that
think
sounds
Analog wants any part of that.
No? Okay. All right. So, Silver and Trank show up to Prism, and Prism is a really high-end nightclub in the Rutherford district of New Angeles. Miss Ultraviolet runs this club, and the outside of it is all like liquid crystal, like wall-to-wall liquid crystals, where like the entire outside of the building is like one giant screen, and it's just constantly projecting different color patterns and like bits of media and like what's going on inside. It's a little bit unnerving, but it's her club's been all of the rage, but it's largely a hobby compared to her main profession, which is acting as a corporate fixer. So when you arrive at the club, the doormen are going to wave, they're going to unclip the rope and let you and Silver through. You are going to be pat down for weapons, and any weapons that you're carrying will just be put in a locker as you go into the club. I assume Silver is probably always packing heat of some kind.
Oh yeah. So they probably. I mean, I probably didn't bring my giant rifle with me, but my sidearm pistol.
Yeah, I imagine you have like an under the arm, like a shoulder holster.
Yeah.
And they're gonna be like, yeah, we get it, but like you can't bring that in there,
Right.
because it's a crowded nightclub. They're not gonna let you bring. They're not gonna let you bring like heat in there. So you get showed up to the VIP room, and Miss Ultraviolet is kind of an interesting figure in the New Angeles underworld, because nobody knows exactly what she looks like, even though many, many people have met her in person in this VIP room or in other parts of the club. Since the entire club is full of these basically like strobing dance lights and liquid crystal screens make up most of the walls and surfaces. Wherever she is, she arranges the color patterns so that it makes it very, very hard to focus on what she actually looks like. So beyond a form of, a slender woman in dress clothes, you can't make out any of the features of her face, and she's always wearing like fluctuating multicolored sunglasses. But she gets you guys a drink, and she has her men wait outside while she sits with you in her little private room overlooking the dance floor of the club. So Trank, I've been watching you, and a lot of people have been putting in a good word for you. So I'm sure you've been putting a lot of pressure on some of my friends to try to get in here. So I've decided that I think I have just the opportunity to see if you might be a good fit for my organization. There is a corporate defector from HB's Cyberbrain Research Division that notably went missing a couple weeks ago. He was originally believed to be killed, but it turns out he tried to escape from HB custody with trade secrets, some sort of illicit information no one knows. But he went off the grid and tried to defect, but he was captured by the Space Elevator Authority trying to get off-world, presumably to get onto Luna or Mars. And now C is trying to sell him back to HB, and that gives people like us an opportunity. There is an employer, one of my best clients, that would like to see him rescued from what is certainly a dire fate at the hands of HB's reprogramming and all sorts of other off-books re-education efforts. They want him rescued and turned over to them instead. They have assured me that he will be set free and allowed to defect, but they have chosen to remain anonymous at this time.
It's fine by me, yeah.
Alright, so why don't you roll to get the job?
Okay. What do I have to roll for that?
Get the job is the edge skill.
Yep, it's your edge.
Okay. That's a 6 + 3 + 1 edge is 10.
That's really good. So
Yeah.
that's really good. So when you roll to get the job, and you roll that high, you get some very interesting additional pieces. So you get to choose 3 things from the list below. The employer provides useful information, intel, which they wouldn't necessarily tell you exactly what it is. You would just basically say, hey, I'm going to use my intel now and say we know how to get into XYZ. Right?
Cool. Yeah.
The employer provides a useful asset for this mission, some sort of gear that you will mark and then use later. The job pays well. Now this is a neat one. If the job pays well, instead of the double modifier that you normally get for a mission, it triples whatever you stake on the job.
Cool.
The 4th option is that the meeting doesn't attract unwanted attention from any of the corporations that are currently interested in you. Or the employer, the true employer of the job, is identifiable even at this point. So, just as a reminder really quickly before we move on to the next segment, if we look here, these are our corporations that our players and I came up with during Session 0. Green Fire Development, the Space Elevator Authority, Hasselback Solutions, GlobalSec, and Hanrio Division. These clocks represent the different levels to which these corporations are interested and actively searching for the player characters at this current time. So, Green Fire's a little bit up in your business, but both Hasselback and GlobalSec are also aware of the party and searching for them. So, you get to make the choice of which of these 3 that you would like, but obviously there's a little bit of suspension of disbelief where the party can discuss which of the 3 they think is most advantageous.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you guys think? Oh, and it'll be helpful for all the players if you can have the ability to have like the moves cheat sheet. One of the moves cheat sheets up on your computer.
See if I can find it.
That would be the papers scattered around that I showed everyone.
Here, I'll just drop a link to the cheat sheet that I use in the group.
I think amenity is always a good thing.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I was going to suggest that would be one of them.
I dropped the MC sheets into the group chat on Discord.
On Discord, okay. Yeah, awesome.
But yeah, so anonymity is good.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so got anonymity, useful information, useful assets, job pays well, and the employer is identifiable. I personally don't think it matters that much who the job is for.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Not as much as additional intelligence.
Yeah, I think either one of or both intel and gear, and the meeting doesn't attract attention, and it's up to, I think, maybe a group vote if we prefer if the job pays well or if we have good gear or good intel.
I think intel's probably at least good to start with.
Yeah,
since
she
we're
hasn't
making
given
our
us
way
much.
through a new system.
Yeah, I mean, I think anonymity works thematically wise because this seems like a woman in a corporation who are good at keeping themselves secret. So we can definitely ask them that if we're going to take this job, that they use their resources to keep us anonymous as well. And then I think, again, intel I think is going to be helpful given that we're kind of going into a lot of this seems like blind.
Yeah, I think with the anonymity, it's just this initial meeting that's kept anonymous, not anything else that happens after this.
Well, okay. Sure.
Yeah, it's not that we're going to be kind of harder to track or whatever. It's just that nobody involved in the corporation, with the HB corporation, knows that this meeting is happening. I personally think that intel is more useful than gear, but it's whether or not gear is more useful than the job paying well.
Intel's fine.
I wonder if we're a little early to worry too much about how much money we're making, like whether that comes in future jobs.
Hey, it's up to you. It's up to you guys. I'm down for whatever.
So we're going to shoot for additional gear then?
Well, I mean, can we have a clarification on like what is the equivalent of 1 credit? Like how far does that go?
So, the way it's quantified is like credit is an abstraction for a sizable amount of money. So, a good rule of how to keep it is 1 cred can buy you an economy car, or like a complicated, or like a simple but not common asset.
Right.
So another example from the list is useful information from a contact. Basic gear, replacement parts, unreliable gang members, or something like a chauffeur. 2 cred will get you a getaway driver, a cheap hacker. Then when you get up to something like 8 credits, cutting edge military gear.
And I think credits also, if I remember correctly, are not just money, but it also could be like your social pull, like basically anything you would use to get things.
Yeah, rather than like an abstraction of like wealth and pull, rather than like being counting out like tens of thousands of credits.
Okay. Maybe we do want that then.
Money's always good.
Yep.
All right. Should we go with intel, money, and anonymity?
Sure.
Works for me.
All right.
Money
so
and
go ahead and mark that down.
Okay.
So you guys are taking no attention, higher money, and intel. You said.
yeah. Where are we marking that?
I'm just marking it here, but if you have someplace that you're keeping notes.
Yep, that's what I'm doing as well.
So now we get to the fun part. Now each member of the party stakes 1, 2, or 3 cred of their own, and it doesn't have to be the same amount. And this part we do need to make note of in like the notes section of your character sheets. That you're betting that the job will be successful. Since you can do 1, 2, or 3. If you stake 3, there is an additional consequence of the legwork clock going up. But since you guys have taken the higher money, the job will be much more lucrative. X3 lucrative.
So Analog's gonna stake 2 cred. She
Okay.
really is looking into getting some more programs for her deck.
All right. Silver.
I'll stake 2 as well.
Harlan.
2.
Uh-oh. We got some high spenders. All right. What about you, Trank?
Yeah, I'll also go 2.
Potential 6. Now here's the thing. That cred is gone off your sheet for now, because it represents the investment that you're making during the legwork phase of the job.
Okay.
In whatever prep you guys end up doing. All right. So now we go right into the legwork phase. So let's go over the directives of the job. You have the directive that you need to rescue from Space Elevator Custody. Space Elevator Authority Custody 1, Damian Magnuson, one of the senior research scientists in the HB Cyberbrain research program. You need to extract him from their custody safely, intact, before he is returned to HB custody. Your employer knows that he is currently being held in the root, and with the news that his disappearance garnered, they are probably going to try to set up some sort of secret drop and exchange in the next couple of days to be able to exchange him with HB to get payment, because they're basically blackmailing HB to keep it quiet and extract a finder's fee basically from them. So I would say you have 3 days before he will be firmly back in Haastage custody and be more or less unattainable by your efforts. Other than that, at this time, you'll have to choose if you want to do your intel, what point you want to do your intel, but that's the details that you have. You know that he's currently being held in the root, that there's going to be some sort of meetup with HB's loss prevention officers, and there'll be some sort of exchange, and that will be your last opportunity to extract him. And your ultraviolet gives you a rendezvous point afterwards where you're supposed to leave him. It's a hotel that you're supposed to leave him. There's already a room rented there for him. Well, not in his name, obviously, but for him. So, and that's where we begin with the legwork phase.
Okay.
Where the various parties, the various members of this group start using your skills or hitting the streets in ways that you think that your playbook allows you to, inventing contacts, etc., to try to build up information about the job. Now, one of the neat double-edged swords about legwork in Sprawl is that the more legwork you try to do, the more information you're going to have to make the mission go smoothly. But the more die rolls you make in the legwork phase, the more opportunities I have for when you make missed rolls, I have the opportunity to advance the legwork and mission clocks, or complicate your lives by tacking additional requirements onto the main mission requirements. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So a contact that you fail a roll with may still do what you need, but then they're going to blab about it later, and they're going to have to be quieted in some way or bought off in some way. Somebody, you may be able to, get information about the people on the security detail, but then somebody might get tipped off that you're snooping around, etc., etc. So, who has some ideas as to, or has any just kind of general questions about the job, and I'll tell you what needs a roll or what I can just tell you outright.
So there's a handoff between SEA handing over to HB. That's correct?
Yeah, there is a notable character that's pretty well known. It's a corporate troubleshooter by the name of Orrin Braxton. He's a Haastage loss prevention officer, aka he makes problems go away and recovers lost assets.
So I'm wondering if, since we have a Bioroid, it's possible that we might be able to pose as HB and set up that drop-off before the actual drop-off were to happen, and just have SEA hand the package over to us.
I mean, that's certainly an option. Yeah.
How do you guys feel about actually going in and getting, what's the guy's name?
Damian Magnuson.
Damian Magnuson out of the route before they even make the handoff. So we need to figure out what time period we want to get the job done.
Point of order. I think you need to decide how much of this you're going to tell Harlan, considering this is his parent company.
Literally in this case.
His company parent.
Yeah, his company parent.
We could tell Harlan that we've been hired by HB to get this guy in the handoff.
I mean, that certainly...
I find this acceptable.
That certainly works. Well, I mean, I think one thing that's worth noting is that Ultraviolet makes it very clear that, Damien's not going to have a great time once HB gets their hands back on him. Like, he's somebody who was intended to be a lifer, working on the most top-secret research programs that they have. He's not supposed to go off the grid. He's not supposed to defect, right? So he's now a liability to them.
Right.
Yeah. So you guys can also decide exactly what your approach is going to be once you know more about how the existing exchange is going to go down. You guys don't have to decide right now what approach you're going to take. You can investigate in multiple directions and then make a choice based on the information that you have.
I don't know if it's just that I watched Ocean's 8 recently, but part of me wants to just do a bait and switch with the actual exchange where we give them somebody and then it's too late until they find out that it's not the right person. But I think that may end up being more complicated than it's worth.
Well, I can try and get into the SEA systems to see where he's being held, where the drop-off is, what time it is. I can attempt that at least.
You can certainly attempt that.
I think that'd be probably a really good starting place.
Okay.
I could probably leverage my street urchin contacts to scope out the route and see maybe if there's anywhere where there's more higher security than normal or anything like that.
Okay. So we'll start with Analog. So Analog, when you say that you're going to try to find that information, do you mean you're going to try to hit the streets and you just use your contacts and surface knowledge at sea, or you think you're going to try to actually infiltrate the systems by entering cyberspace?
I think I'm going to make a run on this net.
You're going to
think
run
that's what
the
it's called?
nets?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to run the nets? Okay.
Okay,
so why don't we start there? That'll be your bit of our first bit of legwork. So
sure.
Why don't you go ahead and roll to log in?
Sure. That is a synth roll.
Correct.
Wish me luck.
It's okay.
8, 9. That's not too bad.
Yeah, it's not bad at all.
So I'm going to have to pick a consequence here. I can get a passive trace, activate some ice, trigger an alert, or have restricted access. Since Analog likes to operate on stealth, I think I'm going to take the passive trace, which will bring my deck down from a 6 to a 5. Sound good to you?
Yep, so that your stealth rating is now a 5?
Yes, I'm going to make a quick note there. And I'm going to use one of the...
oh, hang on. Let me describe what it looks like, because
sure.
We're not just rolling dice here.
Yep.
So once you enter the mainframe for the Space Elevator Authority, it's distinct from the rest of NBN, and their servers looks like this huge multi-mirrored lighthouse like stretching up and up into infinity in cyberspace, and there's just beams of light of different colors just arcing out and just touching on all the other systems that you can see in cyberspace, even the ones that are faint, far away, like other companies' buildings and structures, because they're basically like the spinal column of the net is the beanstalk and the Space Elevator Authority. So you're in. So there's a lot of different information here, but you're going to specifically try to hunt for that. So what are you going to do to try to find that information?
Well, one of the nice things about being a hacker is once I log in, I can get a little bit of help. Some console cowboy.
Nice. So what are you going to do? So you got an 11.
Yep.
Man, these rolls are savage.
I do work here.
You do work
I gotta say that.
High risk, high reward. So you gain 3 hold.
Yep. So that will help me out if I need to... Let me just pull it up real quick. Stop any alerts or hold any subroutines. So that'll be pretty good. I am going to, seeing that this is a lighthouse, go in and start making my way up the stairs to see if I can find some floor plans.
Okay.
So I'm sure there's got to be some generic holding area.
So you're going to try to go into one of the building security nodes?
Yep. One of the schematics.
So why don't you do me a favor and roll compromise security, which is your mind?
Sure. Compromise security. Sorry, I gotta keep... Alright, there we go. And not so good that time.
Oh dear.
I made a few upgrades since the last time I was in here.
So you're going through the camera feeds, right? And you're in like the lighthouse, and it's like you're basically moving all the mirrors around, and it's reflecting on different parts of the system, and you get really confused by it. And what ends up happening is you start moving the mirrors around, and you basically pick up one of the mirrors and adjust it, and it just shows you a piece of ice, and you kind of freak out and disturb the system. So I've increased the trace rating by 1.
Okay.
So you're at a 5, right?
Yep, and I'm going to use some of my console cowboy magic to negate that effect.
Okay. So what you need to do now is you need to try to think of an alternate approach. So you have this guy's description. So you can also find him. Damian Magnuson is a pretty distinct-looking gentleman. He has 2 bionic arms that have been... His normal human arms have been completely replaced with what you would normally see in the most advanced bioroids, where he still has like 5-digit fingers, or 5-digit hands, but each one of them can like transform into different like tools and like articulate into different things. So he basically has like an engineer's toolkit built into both of his arms, and he also has like full bionic eyes that allow him to like telescope and see like very minute bits of engineering, which assist in working on cyber brains and the neural pathways that the bioroids have inside of them. So we're going to come back to you really quick. Just
sure.
Think of a different approach now that you're in the system of how you're going to do it. So what is a piece of legwork that one of the other players would like to work on during the lead up to our first job? Remember, you can invent a contact at any time, once per job, and try to get information that way, or just hit the streets if you have an idea for how you might find information about this.
I think I can, because I chose the I know people move, I can do 2 contacts per job, which is nice.
Yeah.
I think the thing that Trank would do is that he has like quite a wide range of these kind of street urchin friends and contacts called the Lowlands crew. This is one of my 2 crews that I could take as part of my playbook, and their role is surveillance, which allows us to, if we profit from it, gain intel, and if it's a disaster, someone acts on bad information. So I think he would utilize his group of contacts, the Lowlands crew, to see if they could maybe scope out whether there's any extra security around certain bits of the route where they might be, hiding somebody who is particularly noteworthy, or doing something that they might not want to have too much in the way of outside attention.
Okay. Do you have an idea for what type of person this might be?
The Lowlands crew, or
the specific contact?
Oh no, this is just one of my crews that I have.
One of your crews? Okay.
Yeah. So I have two crew.
Do you want to roll hit the street?
Sure do. Let me just bring up the thing. Right. Okay.
So you're talking about, you're gonna see if the street gangs know anything about what's going on with this.
Yeah, my crew that helps me out with surveillance. So how would I use the crew exactly? Would that be in a hit the streets role, or?
So I mean, we can kind of interpret it as a bonus on the die roll.
Okay.
Right, to basically give you an increased chance of having an additional hold.
Okay, how would I add that to my die roll? Let me do a die roll first of all.
So what you would do is you would roll hit the streets is edge, I believe.
It's style.
A style, I'm sorry. You would roll hit the streets, and then in this case I think the crew would probably give you a 1 forward, so you would put that right into the pop-up for the die roll.
Okay. So 4 + 2 + 2 + 1 is 9.
That's pretty good. So hit the street, I think you get to ask me, let me see, remind myself what hit the street exactly does. Where's my basic moves? Because there's the different, there it is. So when you do hit the street, apparently I'm an idiot and I can't find it. There it is. No? So
you're going to be able to choose.
Yeah,
yep,
choose
okay.
2 from the list below. They're not in alphabetical order like you would think. Your requests cost you extra, so you get whatever information you're looking for, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you get to tell me what information you're looking for, but then you have to pick 2. So first, tell me exactly what you're looking for.
Anything that looks kind of out of the ordinary around the route, around the kind of the SEA area, wherever that might be, that's in the base of the beanstalk, whether there's increased security around a certain section of the building, or if it looks like anywhere is kind of being particularly heavily guarded, or might be off limits where it might normally not be if they're holding somebody.
Okay. So your and then you need to pick 2 things. So the request is either going to cost you extra. It's going to take some time for them to provide that information to you.
Mm-hmm.
Your request is going to attract unwanted attention, complications, or consequences, or you need to help your contacts out with something.
I think I'll help them out with something, and it's going to take some time to put together, maybe.
Okay. So, this is the Lowlands crew?
Yes.
So, there's another gang that is moving in on their territory. We'll call them the Red Aces. and they want you to dial up the heat on them. They need somebody to help take the pressure off of their territory. So they want you to interfere with that gang's operations in some way.
Okay.
And then what was the other one that you chose?
It takes a little extra time.
So what that means is that you won't get the information about where the meetup is going down until the end of the legwork phase.
Okay.
So that means that basically when you guys decide that you have enough other information, I'm going to reveal where the actual route is going to end. So then you'll have to go in with limited time to plan in that specific element.
So I think I got a bit confused with how having a crew works, because that's part of my hustling move, which takes place between missions.
Okay.
But I'm happy to say that my contact is kind of a high-up guy in the Lowlands crew. Let me randomly generate a name for him.
Sure.
He's gonna be called Zigzag.
That's fine. Gangsters have dumb names.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, what's a unique feature about him?
Let's say he has a very distinctive zigzag style tattoo right down his chest.
Okay. Perfect. And he's
Very literal in gangs these days.
Is he an OG younger guy?
He's young and kind of up and coming.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so Zigzag is now a contact that exists in our game that you can tap in with, and you have a relationship with, and you also owe him a favor that does have somewhat of a time clock on it.
And that's what was the name of the gang that you came up with again?
The Red Aces. They're moving in on the territory, and he wants you to disrupt their life, maybe get a couple people pinched, basically send them the message that the Lowlands crew has allies that can make their lives difficult.
Sure.
All right, perfect. All right, Silver and Harlan, what are you guys doing during this period of time?
I'm going to go to the route itself. The route is the base of the space elevator. For those watching who aren't familiar with the setting, it's the largest transit center, and it's like the largest airport you could ever conceive of. It's built into the side of a mountain, and there is a massive belt of buckyweave carbon tensile unobtainium threading its way into the sky. It literally is called the beanstalk because it disappears up into the clouds. Millions of tons of cargo pass through each year. There are passenger terminals, there are maglev trains coming and going from every level up and down the side of this enormous mountain in Colombia where New Angeles is located. And I am going to assess the traffic patterns in and out to see if I can figure out where are the most likely pathways for them to enact such a clandestine handover of a VIP that they absolutely do not want to be visible or detectable by any of the millions of people who come and go from the route terminal on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's
so
also
that
worth
is good.
noting that the Beanstalk is like the largest commercial space in New Angeles. Like, it's also just like a huge mercantile center. Like, there's basically what we would consider like the Mall of America X10 built into like the various promenades of the Beanstalk.
Yeah, it's like the world's largest airport, the Long Beach cargo transshipment hub, the Mall of America, all packed into the same geographic area. It's crazy. So this is how that goes for me.
All right, so go ahead and roll it. Roll that beautiful dice footage.
Why is it not going?
You have to go to the big window and click on something for forward.
Oh, I'm in my character sheet.
I'm really sorry. One of my moves is hard to find. So when I hit the street and roll a 7 to 9, I choose one fewer result. So that we should resolve your thing, and then maybe we should go back and because I need to take one of those results away, I think.
Okay.
Okay, where is the channel?
Sorry, I should have been paying attention.
It's okay. So when you go into your sheet, you just click on the little die
There it is.
next to style.
Yeah,
or not style, whatever you would be using for assess.
I did something unfortunate to the window.
Yeah, so you're going to do edge.
It's not showing in the Skype window, but that came to 6, which is no result. That is less than successful.
Mark experience?
Mark experience. So, you go moving around the various kind of cargo areas and some of the lattice work and structural parts of the beanstalk. You know, where there's like service roads and like the various like maintenance routes that are mostly for employees, because you figure that that's where there's going to be the least active surveillance and civilian foot traffic. Is that safe to say? Where something like this might go down. There's also a bunch of old abandoned structures down there, like old warehouses from the construction era, and also like old housing from the construction era of the beanstalk that's still down there, used as like impromptu storage. Also has like squatters in there. And when
In particular, I was looking for, in those disused areas, any movement of SEA personnel that wouldn't be explainable by the normal course of business.
Okay. So, unfortunately, you did not find the information that you seeks, because you did not hit it. But what you do get is you do get noticed by various squatters and other people who are down there, as well as several it wouldn't be global sec, but the cops and people that routinely come down there to harass the squatters and extract protection out of them. And the legwork clock advances to 1500.
Oof.
We don't have a corporate clock for the NAPD?
No. So what I'm going to say is, what you do notice is that there are 3 buildings which look like they've been recently cleared out of squatters, and the boards have been taken off of. So you have 3 possible locations that could be used for either a current safe house or where the job might be going down.
Then I am going to return to our common office facilities, whatever. Do we have a superhero hideout?
Crime Incorporated.
Yes, I return to Crime Incorporated and mark these locations on our big wall map.
Important. Crime will happen here.
Crime.
Good. Yeah.
Crime. Good.
All right. So, what is Silver doing during this period of time?
So I'm thinking about. So Trank's got the problem if he's got to help out his Lowlands gang. They're being threatened by another gang.
Okay. I think I'm going to take away for the one thing that I can take away. I'm going to take away that it takes a long time, if that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, because you have the thing where you have one less
I
negative.
only have to take 1 negative. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're going to just do the take less time. So you're not going to owe them a favor.
No, I'm gonna owe them a favor, but it's gonna take it's not gonna take right until the end before they'll reveal it.
Perfect. So you find out that they have a bunch of drug safe houses underneath the beanstalk, where they have people that they pay off to basically sit on packages that come down the beanstalk, so that they can cool off for a few days before they go and retrieve them. Right, so there's no direct connection, and they shift them between a couple different houses during that period of time to kind of throw off other gangs in the NAPD. And a bunch of their storehouses have been cleaned out as, like, suits have come down into that area for the first time in a long time, besides, like, dumping a body. And they're clearing out some of the houses. So you get narrowed down based on cross-referencing the information with Harlan. You get that there's one house where basically everybody's being kept away from right now.
Okay.
And it's like an old apartment building for the construction crews that worked on the Route of the Beanstalk. And it's basically underneath, close to the ground, like in the shadow of one of the legs of the route. It's like got no sun hitting it. It's just like completely underneath what is now the base of the route.
Okay.
All right, Silver. So what are you gonna do?
So, Trank needs someone to do something about this gang that's bothering the lowlands, right?
No, that's been undone.
No,
Oh,
no, it's not. I still owe that favor.
Yeah, the favor.
Okay.
Yeah. So this game, the Red Aces, is gonna need to be dealt with at some point. That's correct.
And do we know, like, we have a location of where they hang out?
Yeah.
I'm thinking I'll go rough up one of their leaders.
You're just gonna like stroll in and be like, "Hey, I'm looking for Chris." Beat
No,
the
I
shit out of it.
So I think what Silver would do is he would kind of loiter outside and wait for someone to come out that looks important.
Okay.
And maybe trail them until they get some by themselves or only with a couple people, and kind of decide what to do from there.
Okay, so which one of the moves do you think would fit for what you're trying to do?
Well, I'm probably building towards like a playing hardball, but I think I need to find somebody first. So maybe that's hit the street.
Yeah, let's do a hit the street first. So
Okay.
they don't know exactly where the gang, like they know where that gang's territory is. It's right down basically by the waterfront in some of the more run-down touristy areas. But they don't know exactly where they hang out because gangs tend to be pretty secretive about that.
Okay. So that is style, right?
Correct.
So a 10.
Okay. So when you hit the street, tell me what you want to know, my dude.
And I think I get a little something extra, it says, for a 10 plus.
Yep.
Either intel or gear.
Yep.
Is there a way that we could spin this into gear? Because I think my character would be more interested in that.
Yeah.
That, like, maybe I'm able to steal something from this gang or something while I'm doing this job.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll mark that I have a gear. And then, yeah, so I'm trying to... I guess that probably means that I find where they're located, and I may be able to stake out until I find somebody who looks like maybe a upper level member of the gang.
Yeah, there's an old, like, love motel that they've basically taken over. It's been closed for a while, but it's not, like, falling apart. So they basically hang out inside of this old hotel. And that's where they keep, like, a lot of their people and a lot of their merchandise.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, what is Silver? And I know you mentioned, like, the dermal stuff, but, like, what is Silver dressed like? Cut me an image of what Silver looks like loitering around this gang's hideout.
So I think that he's dressed sort of military, but like more corporate, like in that, like it's all black rather than like camo or anything like that. But he's got combat boots on. He's got.
So you're goth, not invisible.
Basically, yeah. But I mean, he's more like he looks like a professional bodyguard or like a bouncer, you know, kind of guy. He's big. He's dressed in black. He's intimidating, and then he's got this sort of silver sheen to his skin. So probably wearing like also like a kind of a suit jacket, you know, over his armor kind of thing.
Right. He looks imposing, but sharp.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you obviously packing heat?
I think for this, I probably did not bring my giant rifle, so I probably have again my sidearm under the jacket.
Right, but you're not like hanging out outside of their apartment with like an AK strapped on your back.
No, I'm probably, just like hanging outside, smoking a cigarette or something, and just kind of watching, maybe leaned up against the wall.
Okay. So, eventually, two young men with these bandanas that have like the type of pattern that you would see on like a playing card come out, and it's like a single, it's like a single red diamond on these bandanas with like that filigree pattern that you would see on a back of a playing card. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Come out and they say, "Hey, Mang, what the fuck you doing around here?"
I'm just waiting for a taxi.
Hey, there's plenty of taxis down there, and they point back towards like the more touristy part of the waterfront. Ain't no taxis friendly to you around here.
So, quick question: are these guys look like they're probably grunts, right? They're not. I'm not super.
They go out for like a smoke, right? There's like a bunch of them like on like the porches, like hanging out doing stuff, and two of them basically come out the front to like have a smoke. And they catch you just kind of loitering outside of the building, and they come over to try to run you off the turf. And also, you are pretty sharply dressed, so
Yeah. Okay, so I don't think I want heat with these guys. I maybe want to take a step back, so I might be like, all right, I don't want any trouble, and just kind of maybe start walking down the block a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're gonna be like, yeah, you don't, bitch. Keep walking. And they tell you to keep walking down the beach. Okay. So let's jump back to Chris real quick, because I see what you're trying to do here. We'll come back. We'll come back to you real quick. So Chris, you're hanging out in cyberspace. Have you given some thoughts?
Furiously typing away.
Yeah, you're using that hacker program where each time you hit a key, it does like a whole line of text, you know?
So she's thinking, if I can't find the guy himself, let's see if we can find communications to... I'm so bad with names.
Damian Magnuson is the person that got kidnapped.
It is the corporate fixer.
Yeah. You mean Orrin Braxton?
Yep. So she's going to try and probe the databases, see if she can find some archived communication going back and forth between him and the SCA.
Yeah, I mean that would certainly be something that you could do. So why don't you roll?
That would probably be manipulate systems.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to roll synth on this one.
So it's also your deck. So tell me what you're doing if you want to add any kind of sweet effects to it, because we are in Netrunner, and the cool effects is like 90% of why you become a hacker, right?
So her
fight with cyber swords.
Showing off.
Yep. So she's analog. So for this, to try and find some data, she pulls out an old-timey magnifying glass, holds it up, lets it go, and it just starts spinning like a loading icon.
That's cute. All right, what did you roll? Let's see what you get.
All right. So that'll be 7.
That's,
so that's
not bad. That's
good
a
enough.
success.
Yep.
All right, so tell me what the information that you're looking for is. Like, tell me what you want to have be the information that you discover, and then we'll adjust it from there.
Sure. So I'm going to try and research any communications, I guess outgoing communications to him, not necessarily his responses.
Okay. So
Since that might be archived somewhere else on his servers.
Sure. So basically, since you have access to the systems, if you don't focus on external communications coming into private mailboxes, and instead basically spoof your credentials for the security system for like who checks to make sure that people aren't sending not safe for work shit or private information out on their email accounts, you're basically able to get into like a huge admin account with a shitload of emails inside of it and kind of parse
way too many
with,
cat pictures.
right?
Just far
Lots
too many
of cat memes, people sending inappropriate pictures and jokes, but you're able to find the information that you're looking for, and you see that they are talking with Orrin, or somebody's talking to his assistant about setting up a antiques purchase, and the address for where that is going to go down is in the abandoned old city. It's not an address that's in use, and it references a house inside of the basic. I don't want to say the Undercity because that's actually a thing in San and also World of Warcraft. But yeah. So you've basically ascertained that the house that Trank and Harlan discovered is where the meet's going to happen. It's not where Mr. Magnuson is currently being held.
So are there any times that antiques appointment was scheduled for?
Not as of yet. It looks like from the one-sided conversations that you're seeing, they are still haggling over price, which looks like this is a very expensive antique. And they're also arguing about who is going to do the shipping, and or who's gonna basically provide security for the meetup, or how much security can be at the meetup.
So while I'm here, Dan,
you're gonna look for some pay.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea, right?
Yeah, so roll it.
All right, would that be a research? Let me see if I can figure out.
I think it's the research, right? Let me double check. I need to put I'm so reticent to put
roll mind. Okay.
Roll your mind. I'm so reticent to put bookmarks all over this book, but I need to.
Your Sprawl book or your Worlds of Android book?
My Sprawl book. I would not put.
I got them dollar bills.
You did
good stuff right there.
You need to get those adhesive little flags.
I do. But I want the ones that don't damage the pages.
You can get those. The Post-it makes them.
Yeah. So, can you explain to our viewers how this move works when you're inside another system and you try to find pay info?
Sure. So basically, since we're in the emails, I'm sorting through, looking around, seeing if I can find any compromising information. You know, maybe let's go with Jacob from accounting's been sending some work inappropriate pictures. Maybe he's trying to flirt with someone, tell him about all these awesome projects he's working on that may not really be public knowledge.
Okay, so you're going to go with rather than a private buyer, you're going to see if you can extort a little bit of blackmail, hush money out of him.
Yeah, I mean, employees' reviews around the corner. It's nice to have someone in your corner. You know?
Yeah, I gotcha. So, So I'll say with that roll, you get 1 cred worth of pay data, where you're basically able to find something really juicy where he's been on some sort of executive. We'll call him Jake from accounting. Has been on some sort of
Jake.
What?
That Jake.
Yeah. He's been on some sort of executive dating website, and he's trying to trump himself up and make himself look more important, and he's been revealing information to his current beau, who works for a Wayland subsidiary, about classified projects. So there's your information that you got out.
All right.
I like it. And then do me a favor and give me a jack out roll, Analog.
Sure.
This is my favorite part of the SprawlRPG, is that you can fail to leave the net. It's so good. Oh, I gotta leave. Oh, I didn't leave, and I also drew a ton of attention to myself.
Oh, Dan. Speaking of drawing attention to yourself.
That's so good. Okay. So
dear.
The system is going to deploy ice. Let me take a look here. Now, you were manipulating systems, right?
Right.
So you weren't actually damaging or destroying anything. So I don't think that we're in a black ice situation here, but a piece of blue ice is going to be just sent out against you. And in
Mm-hmm.
Netrunner terms, what I've basically decided is black ice is sentries. Blue ice is barriers, meaning that they're just trying to boot you out.
Mm-hmm.
And red ice is code gates, where they are looking to hinder you and slow you down in some way and basically get you caught. Does that make sense?
Yep. Well, with the roll this bad, I do not leave. I'm still in there.
How do the Netrunner players in this game feel about that assessment of ice? In Sprawl, blue ice are basically ones that just want to identify you and kick you out. Red ice want to mess with your deck and like slow you down so people can find you or catch you. And black ice are the ones that try to destroy your hardware or harm you in some way.
Seems good.
That scans, yeah.
All right, so a piece of blue ice gets put together. So basically, you're in this huge mirror room, right? Inside of the structure of the network, like rearranging all of these like laser mirrors to find the information inside of like the vast network of information. And a bunch of the mirrors that are not in use come together and turn into basically like a rough analog of what you would imagine like a huge buff bouncer to be. Doesn't look like the person who programmed this had a ton of imagination. It has like blocky mirror finish, like aviator glasses built into it. There's this huge blocky form moving towards you. And it is going to get to execute a routine. It is going to attempt to trace your location, which means that the current trace level goes from 2 to 3 out of 5.
It goes to 2.
It was at 2 before, wasn't it?
It was at 1 before. I was able to use my console cowboy magic.
That's correct. Yep. So it's at 2.
To reroute it.
If it reaches 5, your meat space location gets discovered by the and tracked by the system. All right.
All right. Looks like it's time to try and melt some ice.
Okay. Roll it.
All right. So she deploys her ice breaking program, the Maxim, which is hand crank machine gun. Keeping it retro.
Keeping it retro. Yeah, so is that going to be your theme? Is like all of your stuff is like the low-tech versions of modern technology?
Pretty much, yeah.
That's really good. I like that theme. Just as long as when you steal data, it's on VHS tapes and like floppy disks instead of like it's like on a digital representation of like a VHS tape.
And I imagine her avatar, I like to think of it as Paul Newman suit, like Road Perdition.
I like that. Yeah.
So 7 means that I will. I think I'm going to go with evade as opposed to destroy it or disable it.
Okay. So describe
but
what happens.
We'll be able to execute a routine before I can disable it. So I'm guessing that the bouncer put himself between me and the doorway, as it were, out. So I'm just putting down a weight of fire to try and get him to move off to the side. It's not getting in there. It's not really doing much damage, but just the weight of fire is pushing him back.
Okay. So I get to execute one more routine before you're successful in disabling the piece of ice?
Yes.
So I am going to let me these are all
so good.
They're all so good. Yeah, I'm gonna just increase the trace. So you're gonna go from 2 to 3. Are you gonna try to jack out now?
I'm going to deactivate that routine and then try and jack out again.
Okay, go for it.
And so for a better roll this time.
So as you're basically slow. Oh, it's so good. How is your cool so low? Don't you use synth for this?
No, this is cool.
Right, because you're trying to keep calm while you're getting chased around.
Yeah.
Inside.
And she does not handle pressure well.
That's so good. So you're more about avoiding discovery. You're not about fighting ice. All right. So as you're like chain gunning down this blue ice and like huge chunks of the mirror are shattering and breaking, I'm going to have it be that the ice calls for backup.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll notice in another location that a similar version of this program, but this one armed with a sword and shield, powers up instead of just having like open hands, and it starts moving towards you at speed. So you're gonna try to jack out?
Yep.
All right. Come on, big money.
No whammies, no whammies. All right, I'm out.
All right, so you basically like pop your eyes open and like rip the jack out of the back of your head as you're like dressed like drenched in sweat in your apartment.
She's going shit.
Putting all the hard drives in the microwave like Mr. Robot.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got some good information thus far. So we've established where the actual job is going to be, though we haven't established where Mr. Magnuson is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys know where he's going to be, and you know that there hasn't been a price and a time set yet. But you also know who's involved, and you also know that there's an assistant. We're going to call her Josephine Greg. Oh, no, I'm not going to do the Batman thing where everybody has a first name as the last name. Josephine Wagner is Mr. Braxton's assistant, who's been corresponding with the associate from the Space Elevator Authority, who is one of the security force, the actual physical meat space security force, but he's on contract from GlobalSec, so he's basically on permanent retainer for C, even though he is actually employee of GlobalSec, and his name is
Braxton?
No. Oren is the one that works for HB. The guy who's handling the Space Elevator Authority side of it is we'll call him Jonathan Marks.
Okay.
So you have some information there. So that's what we've got so far for the legwork clock, or for the legwork phase. So we have a concrete idea of where the current exchange is going to go down. It's going to happen sometime in the next 3 days. It's going to be a pretty high dollar amount exchange, and you know the parties who are involved with the negotiations. So thoughts, questions, next steps that people have in mind?
Next steps I want to do is I want to return to the route and actually try and scope out the more populated areas, the area of the terminal that is actually SAA's security area. If we going back to the airport metaphor, I think if thinking of the route in this area as a large airport, he's inside the security cordon. So I would like to try and penetrate that area to see if I can't, once I get past security, scope around and see if I can actually spot what area of the facility he's being held in.
So one thing that's notable when you're on this like huge platform, right? Like this huge semicircular, basically walkway that leads to all the different elevator terminals and various maglevs that lead away from the route to other parts of the city. As you're walking with all of the humans who are going about their travels and their days, all of these augmented reality ads are popping up in front of every single person as they're walking. You know, come on down to, Yucca Bean Coffee before your trip up the beanstalk. And then as you're walking, you're not tripping any of the automated advertisements. So there's like a little bubble of no advertisements as you're walking because you're not tripping any of the motion sensor or ID systems that trigger the ads.
I find it quite pleasant.
Yeah. But yeah, so you're just trying. What is the specific kind of intel that you're looking for?
I'm looking for any place that is actually under guard.
So-
Any place that that
like
appears
holding
that
cells, or like where they
not necessarily holding cells, but areas that where they're steering people away, where that are that seem to have an extra security cordon. Any place that would seem to require infiltration in order to access. I'm not attempting to penetrate their security, other than let's see, this is going to be probably an assess or an act under pressure to actually penetrate the security cordon.
So I don't think it's going to be act under pressure for you because you're largely invisible. Like people aren't scrutinizing you, right? They either assume that you're there in some official capacity for your employer, or that you're traveling to wherever your employer currently is inside of this facility. So go ahead and roll assess.
I'll take that plot cookie with the realization that I will probably pay for it later. That's better.
That's better. So you get some holds, so that means that you get to ask some questions. So
all right,
ask me. I think it's 3 questions off the list.
Yeah,
right?
3 questions.
That's pretty good.
What do I notice despite an effort to conceal it?
So I think one of the things that's notable here is that there, you have like perfect space relation awareness, right? You know how like sometimes like you can go into like an older house and get a sense that like there isn't enough room for how big the floor plan of the house is, like there's something hidden there, but like you can't ever be sure. You're able to very quickly assess that in the big area where everybody goes through TSA, basically, there's like a huge like pylon space that's way bigger than you would anticipate it to be, and it would have like a lot of negative space on the outside of it. And you notice the faint silhouette of a door that's completely unmarked, like almost completely smooth with the rest of the wall on this like huge pylon that's meant to look like one of the support pylons for the root cutting through the structure, but you know that that's not what's there. It's like a hollow space that's in there.
How is this space most vulnerable to me?
Well, there's the door, but it's basically like right flush with the line where everybody goes through the scanners and has their bags looked at. But it's probably not only on this floor, right? It probably goes across multiple levels of the structure. So there might be an entrance somewhere else. And also, this door being basically flush with the wall, this is probably not where they take people in and out.
Who or what is in control here?
So you notice when you're walking around and basically standing around like you're waiting for like somebody to come off of one of the maglevs, that there are several like very high level, well-strapped, well-dressed global sec security guards wandering around the facility. And also they seem to be ordering around a lot of the NBN employees who are doing like the info scans and like the facial recognitions and like the bag scans for the space elevator.
All right, I'm going to make some notes, but I will keep all this in mind.
Perfect. So you may have a lead on where he's currently being held, if that was an angle that you want to play or dig in for more information from.
Well, I will be taking +1 forward when we act on the answers per the move. So
if anybody else, what that means in mechanical terms for people who are watching who may not be familiar with Powered by the Apocalypse, What that means is that if somebody is like, hey, I want to dig in deeper and like try to bring up like the plans for that section of like the Beanstalk terminal and see if I can figure out what's in that pylon, they're going to get +1 to that roll because they're acting on good information gathered by another character. Which is really rad because it means that like any information that you gather isn't just useful for you. Now, going back to Silver, let's talk about you and your interactions with this gang.
Yeah, I have some questions.
Sure.
So, do I have a sense of, like, even in rough terms, how many gang members we're talking about at this motel from just what I was able to observe?
Probably about 20.
20. Okay, so probably don't want to attack that head on. Do I have a sense? Could I see, like, maybe was there like a whirlpool suite or something where, like, maybe, you know, the fancier room where someone important might be hanging out?
Yeah, you notice that there's a patio on the second floor that seems to have like a quieter party going on, whereas most of the members of the gang are milling around like what used to be the hotel restaurant like patio. There seems to be a smaller group of people in one of the upstairs suites hanging out on the patio. You can see like thick clouds of smoke and there's some lights on up there. Okay.
Do I think like I could set up on a building across the street or something and get a good vantage point into that second story?
You tell me. Why don't you roll Act Under Pressure?
Okay, that's a cool roll.
Yeah. But you're a killer. You're super cool.
I'm not. I'm 0 cool. So 6.
All right.
I think that's a fail. Or whatever that constitutes for this.
Yeah, just nothing happens. So I don't know if I can get a good
don't know if you can get a good line of sight. Okay.
So maybe I make a phone call to Trank while I'm just kind of walking down the beach, and ask. I tell them that they're holed up pretty well in there. Do you have any ideas or any contacts about maybe you could lure someone out or create a situation where I can get some one-on-one time with one of these guys?
Yeah, I think Trank might have worked with the Red Aces before. He's not too fussed about who he does his kind of petty crime business stuff with. So he's probably got a contact in the... I think maybe now is the time I do my I know people move. So once per mission, let me put it in the... So once per mission, you may introduce a new contact, name that contact, say what they do, then roll style. 10 plus, you've worked with the contact before and they have a talent, write them down as a contact. 7 to 9, you've never met them before, they're an unknown quantity. 6, you know them all right, tell the MC why they dislike you. After you've rolled, describe how you contact them and the MC will ask some questions.
Perfect.
So let me name this person first of all. I'm going to call them Tryst, Tryst.
Okay.
And let's roll 4. So it's a style roll. That's 10.
And what's Trist's pronouns?
She.
Okay. And what did you roll? Hey, that's not bad. That's a 10. That ain't bad.
I guess it depends on whether we want to play it as that Trank has a quiet word with his contact in the Red Aces and asks them to stop what they're doing, or if maybe Tryst is...
I think I've got a suggestion.
Okay.
If you're up for it.
Sure.
So Silver was trying to basically get a vantage point on the roof across the street.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I say that you're going to dial in to Tryst, one of the higher lieutenants of this gang, and Silver, you're going to see a handheld pad light up on that balcony that's mostly dark, just with like people smoking. And here you can't make out the words "somebody pick up the phone." Trist is gonna say, "Oi, what do you need?" And you're gonna explain that she needs to back off of the Lowlands crew.
And let's say, yeah, if we do that, and like if she says no, then I'll pick somebody off in the party with my sniper.
So I've got a. I like the idea that Trank has some kind of relationship with this person, and that maybe Trist is a member of the Red Aces who isn't that fussed about what they're doing, maybe, or is like looking for a way out, or has some kind of connections on the outside, and is willing to put one of the other lieutenants of the gang in a position, so not compromising the contact, but if it's a contact that we want to use again in the future,
okay,
we've got so she can make sure that somebody is stood in the position that they need to be stood in, and then Silver can like draw a bead on that person. We've got a nice little red dot on their forehead, and the phone rings, they pick it up, say maybe you want to back off, and see how it goes.
Yeah.
All right, that works for me.
I mean, that works for me. So basically what I'm going to say is you reach out to your friend and you're like, listen, I know that the people that you work with, they don't know the rules, but you got to back off. Otherwise, you're going to end up, having a lot of problems. The Lowlands crew have got some friends, including me. And then you're going to draw a bead on one of the other lieutenants that's up there with her and scare the shit out of them.
Yep. So I'm across the street. I've got the red dot on one of the lieutenant's foreheads, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So yeah, so they're gonna back off at least for the time being, but I'm also gonna start a clock. So Trist is still a contact, but that lieutenant that she kind of set up to have the piss scared out of him had like a huge loss of face, right? Basically like shaking in fear on this phone with like a sniper rifle leveled at him. So I'm gonna call him. I'll keep with the theme. I'm gonna call him Blackjack, and he is not gonna take that well. And we're gonna start a clock for him because he is very interested in figuring out who the fuck threatened him.
I've always found it curious that humans use equipment which betrays their position from a distance.
Yeah, you're like Drax. I've been standing here the whole time.
Perfectly invisible.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I pack up my gun very quickly and get out of there.
Yeah. Rad. I like that. All right. So, mission objectives. You've got to extract Dabian Magnuson. He needs to be alive, and you need to get him to the drop point for your employer, which is a like an uptown hotel in a nice district where there will be lots of bystanders to kind of keep any kind of like heavy action from coming down on him. So, how do we feel? And how do we feel about the information that we have? What other information do you all want to try to get in preparation? You already have one intel stored up. Oh, the gear.
I've got a gear.
For you, I'm gonna say that like when you use that, we're gonna have to try to keep that creatively limited to something that you'd be able to steal or otherwise procure from a bunch of like gangbangers you were threatening.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll cross that bridge when it comes to it, but keep that in mind. Like you can't be like, and they had a prototype hopper. It's like, what? No.
A tank.
Yeah, like. All right. So what other information are we gonna look for?
I'd like to walk the route from the pylon within the security cordon, and review the potential routes to the depopulated area where the handoff house is located, to try and figure out what route are they going to take. If they're going to have a large crew of people escorting who are corporate suit security provided by Global Sec, escorting an unwilling participant to a depopulated downmarket area, there's only so many ways that they can take that route without drawing in unnecessary attention.
Okay. So what you find so you're looking for like the specific routes that they might take to get basically onto like the ground level beneath the route where the safe houses are.
Suffice it to say, I doubt that they're going to frog march him through crowds of people that are just trying to make their bean pod flight.
Okay. So roll an assess. Actually, roll hit the streets. Because you're basically going to need to talk your way into some of the old service areas or some of the like VIP, like get quietly to a car areas of the terminal.
Okay. Well, I'm going to call in then one of my forwards because I'm springboarding off the information that I already obtained.
Okay.
And I think that's probably a good thing that I did. Dice do not love me tonight.
So you got a 7. Looks like. Yeah, you got a 7.
Get what I want. Barely.
So you get 1 hold. Tell me about it. What's the question that you're asking?
Let's see here. Well, I'm not quite sure what to make of these results because for Hit the Streets, it specifically references a request that I'm making of a contact.
Okay. So who do you think would be a good contact for something like this? A Bioroid can also have contacts. Maybe you even have contacts with some of the service Bioroids that work in the actual terminal.
Hey, I like that. Let's go for one moment here. Morgan, insert randomly generated alphanumeric code here, CTM147ME is a maintenance Bioroid. Who is familiar with the comings and goings through the terminal into the both major areas of traffic and minor areas of traffic. Major areas of traffic would be the pathways and thoroughfares to the various maglev lines. Disused areas would be things like cargo elevators, sub-basement levels and whatnot. This request is going to... he's going to need me to help him out with something.
Okay.
So that's a potential complication. Are we going to invoke that now or later?
So I think what he would probably want you to do is there is varying levels of autonomy and like free time that the various Bioroid models are given based on how much intellect they're perceived to have and how much need for that kind of interpersonal research they are believed to require. He wants you to bring him back what would basically be, by HB's standards, contraband of like various entertainment devices like board games, puzzles, and things that they've decided that he doesn't need because it makes him worse at doing his job.
And I need to choose 2 from the list, so I think this request is going to cost me something extra. So I think he wants something that is actually going to be special. He wants an actual consciousness upgrade component that will actually allow him to more fully appreciate these diversions that he's asked me to provide. He wants not just the entertainment media, he wants expanded capacity to appreciate them.
I like that. So go ahead and note that, and that's something that you're probably going to have to work on as like an ongoing project. Okay, I like that. So the information that he gives you is that there is a like basically like a drunk tank that the global sec uses to keep like black site people that are being moved off-world or down from off-world in containment that is completely off the books. And it's built out of one of the old pylons for the beanstalk that's been hollowed out on the inside, and it goes all the way to the ground level. It's just like a series of cells and interrogation rooms with no cameras. But the pylon that you found, that is this facility within the facility, is on the completely opposite side of the route from where the meetup is going to be. So what he suggests is most likely is that they're going to use either one of the old like materials maglevs that they use to move heavy materials around the base, or they're going to just do like a motorcade to traverse the several miles between the two locations. So what's most likely going to happen is it's going to come out of this facility that's built into one of the legs of the route, and then they're going to get into either a car or one of the maglev trucks and travel around to the other side of the route to get to the abandoned apartment building where the meetup's happening.
So it doesn't really narrow it down. If they're taking the motorcade option, then that is one route. But if they're using the maintenance areas, that's a completely different route.
So
we've got more than one base to cover?
Well, not exactly. So what you can isolate using the information from him watching people come and go through this facility like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of times over the years, is that there's basically only one driving route that they can take that's completely safe, and the only like maglev that they can use is one that does have public traffic on it. So they're more likely to use private cars where they can be basically completely in the underbelly, away from the actual proper citizens that use the... They're probably going to stick to being completely on ground level, down in the shit, which means that they're going to be completely out of public view, and there's going to be a reduced security camera presence. If they use one of the cargo trains, there's going to be some sort of formal documentation and cameras that they would either have to disable or erase after the fact if they wanted it to be completely off books.
Duly noted.
All right. So, anyone else have like legwork questions or anything that they want to work with?
Yeah, I was thinking that Trank could maybe talk to some of the people living in the slums around the building, the emptied out building, and ask them to observe the kind of comings and goings over. If we've got a couple of days before the extraction is going to happen, he could, ask them to see if there's any kind of regular security patrols, or if there's any comings and goings at the same time on the 2 days, or if it doesn't seem to be any kind of regularity to when people are going in and out.
Okay, so you've already declared your 2 contacts, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, you've only declared 1, right?
No, I declared the other one was Trist. So.
Right. Well, no, you did Trist, but the other thing was just your gang, right? Yeah.
Oh no, he's the leader of my, or one of the lieutenants of this crew that I work with. So I think he counts as a separate contact.
Okay, that's fair. All right, so what do you think is going to be your best avenue for gathering this information?
Well, I thought that rather than hit the streets, so where did it go? It might be best to do fast talk. So I go to a group of NPCs. They're just some of these people who live in the slums, and say, "Look, I need to know. I need somebody to keep an eye on that building over the road. See what's going on with it. If we can work out when the security patrols are, if there's people coming in and out, who's going in and out, what they look like. Just some kind of scope out the building a little bit and see what we might be coming up against if we decide to do anything that involves the warehouse or the block of flats that it was."
Perfect. Roll it.
Okay. So that is a style roll.
Big money.
Big money. Here we go.
Yeah.
There we go. It had to go wrong eventually.
So that's going to advance the legwork clock once more up to 2100.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's going to happen is
was that 2 notches?
No, there's another one that came up based on the approach of how certain things were done earlier in the legwork phase. That'll become apparent when we actually get into the mission phase. I have some notes here for different things that can advance the legwork clock that are not fully transparent.
Oh, so the clock might actually be higher than we know?
No, this is always the true value of the clock.
Okay.
But I'm just not always going to reveal what is moving it. But so here's where we're at. So basically you start poking around with a lot of the urchins down there, but it looks like somebody beat you to the punch, and one of the corporate goons already went around and spread some creds around, being like, "Listen, why don't you get yourself a nice meal? Make sure that you tell me if you see anybody poking around here the next few days who doesn't already live down here besides me, okay?" So somebody had the exact same idea as you, but 2 days ago. Do you know what I'm saying?
Sounds like my entire life.
So they got a little bit ahead of you, and they reported back that there was some guy matching your description poking around and trying to spread some cash around.
Cool.
All right. So we know where the drop's going to be. We know the 2 routes that they could take. We know where approximately we know the facility that he's being held in now, and we know that the parties who are involved with the transaction. So let's talk very briefly before we close tonight, before we do any more potential legwork rolls. What we talked about a couple of different approaches that we might take at the beginning of the session. What are some of the members of the party thinking as to how they actually want to execute the job?
I think maybe if we can get into this hollowed out area with the cargo maglevs, that perhaps we could intercept them there, where there might not be as much in the way of observation, and kind of physically replace the guards that are taking him to the safe house, and from there we can get him out the other side and maybe divert the final destination.
Other thoughts?
I anticipate a high level of security when they attempt to move him from the pylon to the motorcade. I think I consider it unlikely that they are going to try and use the maglev route, as that risks public exposure. However, I am concerned at the level of probable security that they are going to have when they transfer from the pylon to the motorcade area. There may simply be too many participants at that location in order to efficiently infiltrate their operation.
So
do we try and get them? Sorry.
I just want to make sure I'm following the line of thought that I think Trank and Harlan are putting forward. You're thinking that once the actual prisoner transfer is underway, it's going to be too heavy for you to overtake the motorcade. You're thinking that it's best to either jump in right before they're going to move him while the security is still more limited and try to either replace the guards or just extract him from the starting point? Is that what we're going with here?
That is possible.
Mm-hmm.
Another option that we may consider may be to reduce their available options. If in some way we can disable their motorcade route and render that unsuitable, that may force them to compromise their operations and make use of the maglev train. The public accessibility of that route may allow us to approach more closely without being detected.
Do you think there's something in the traffic systems that Analog could exploit? Or would they probably just run red lights and ignore a lot of those things?
Well, I think it depends on what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, one of the big things for and we're doing a really good job with this thus far, but one of the big things with this system is I don't tell you what's possible. You're like, I want to do X, and then I make it more complicated or cost you more, either in the events leading up to it or after it. So if you want to say, hey, I'm going to, like, call in a bunch of other police or whatever on a phony call or spoof a system to get a bunch of other people down into the slums so that they can't use the roadways, you can do that. You can try to, like, make it so all the lights are red or cause an accident of some kind, you know what I'm saying, that forces them onto another route, right? You can always have, like, the burning semi-truck along the route. You just got to set it up ahead of time.
So
I strongly favor an approach that targets the subject prior to their contact with Haastage personnel. Actions that I take which might have the potentially to impact shareholder value of Haastage in a negative fashion are to be avoided.
And I would prefer not to damage the beanstalk in any way.
Okay, that's fair.
I find it highly unlikely that our activities are able to cause significant damage to a facility of this size.
Silver, we haven't heard you weigh in.
So I'm thinking, I mean, it makes sense to choke them into one so that we can predict where they're going to be. Are we going to be able to, I'm thinking, are we going to be able to, like, what's our plan for actually, like, infiltrating that part of the route to actually extract the person? Like, if they're in the maglev, like, how do we get in there and be ready?
Like that maglev that is one that was used for moving construction materials and is still basically used for building, moving maintenance supplies to, like, the base of the beanstalk. It goes all the way around the base of the beanstalk and then connects to, like, multiple tracks, right, that, like, connect off with different switches to the outside supply lines. So, like, there's workers on that, you know, people who basically hop on the personnel car of that to, like, come into work every day. There's cargo for, like, supplying the actual facility that comes in there, fuel, you know what I'm saying, etc.
Right.
Air scrubbers, things like that.
So you might want to work on getting credentials to be there without alerting any suspicion.
Or fabricate a work order.
Right. Correct. Now, there's a very, very low likelihood that you would have anyone who is actually a civilian, meaning not working either for Wayland or the Beanstalk subsidiary corporation, or the actual Space Elevator Authority. It's going to be mostly workers. It's not like there's going to be people trying to catch a flight on this maglev. Does that make sense?
I'm just concerned about my ability to get in there fully armed. Because
I mean, with the right fake credentials, all sorts of things are possible.
Sure.
Keeping in mind there's also the opportunity for you to falsify credentials and then hide your weapons in a container of some kind.
Like a mob.
Or just like a crate that you're bringing onto the maglev.
Perhaps someone should infiltrate the maglev ahead of time.
I could take it to work that day.
You're just like on there in a suit with like all the blue collar people going to work, like all the maintenance and engineer staff.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think he's dressed like Day Job. He's got that pre-tied necktie that he accidentally put on backwards.
I don't think it was accidentally, but continue. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, could we get him in there? Could we get in there with a crate that would have like weapons and things? Then maybe even we could use that to, I don't know, to stuff a guy and take him out in a crate or something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You could certainly try. That's an avenue that we could work towards as like the last bit of legwork. So go ahead.
I have an anti-material rifle. It would be fairly simple fairly simple to disable their motorcade from a distance.
Harlan has an anti-material rifle?
Well, it's a sniper rifle. He uses it as anti-material because,
he can't kill
shooting
people.
at squishy things is bad.
Yeah.
It's not a sniper rifle. It's an anti-material rifle.
Yeah, you shoot the engine. What happens to them after the car flip is hardly your
It's
fault.
not my problem.
Yeah, it's hardly your fault.
So can we get then analog on getting in there and seeing if they can if she can set up some reason why they can't take a motorcade. So if that's like a traffic jam or police activity, and then also getting us a work order to be present on site with what will look like construction material.
Yep.
Yeah.
That would be 2 separate runs, it sounds like.
Well, the biggest thing that you would need to do is you would need to figure out what needs to be on the credentials, which would be a run, basically, right? You would need to figure out what you would exactly need to create working credentials. And then you're going to have
always visit Deborah from maintenance.
Right. You could declare a contact to generate those credentials after the fact.
I also still have a contact I can declare, so I could potentially have a construction contract or something contact.
Well, I mean, also getting false documents is one of Trank's specialties, I guess. So if you had a contact that one of you could like use a contact, then Trank could meet with that contact and see if the kind of quality is up to what's needed, because he's going to have an eye for that kind of thing.
Yeah, let's do that. So, Silver, why don't you declare a contact?
Okay. Yeah, so I've got a buddy who is a contractor for an independent contractor that I've dealt with before in my previous life working for the Wayland Development Company. Let's name him Harvey Sander. Maybe a little on the nose, but okay, sure, why not? And he, so yeah, he could definitely verify whether our documents would make the cut for what we need.
All right. So are you gonna basically try to like call in a favor? Like, set me up a story. Like, did you help him out of a fix? Like, was he under the pinch from the mob? You know what I'm saying? Like, how did you help him out that you can now go to him and be like, hey man, I just need some like burner credentials. They won't link back to you in any way.
Right. Well, I'm sure he's a contractor, so he probably stiffed somebody at some point. And I maybe helped him out of that situation by like providing him with some physical protection when maybe, like the mob or somebody was, he did some work for them in a building, and they weren't pleased
with the results.
It wasn't up to the quality, that they wanted, and so he helped him deal with those people who probably no longer are alive.
Okay, and then Trank, you're gonna go with him to help fabricate the.
Yeah, well, so Trank has. Let me just grab my character sheet here. Trank has cyber eyes. That have magnification and light amplification abilities. So I figure that would be the kind of thing that he could use to, really take a good deep look at the IDs and if they're going to pass muster with something that's going to be scrutinizing them pretty heavily.
Okay, so why don't we go there? Who's going to actually do the negotiation with him? the hit the streets roll. Do you want to do it Silver, or would you rather be like, hey, remember that thing? My friend and I need a favor. He's better at explaining it, or do you want to explain it?
I think that Silver is not the guy who makes the deals, and he never was in his previous life. So I think that he would probably have Trank do the talking, but it would be leveraging the fact that, like, yeah, remember, like, we go back, I helped you.
Yeah. Remember that time I kept you having functioning kneecaps? Remember that? That was a great time.
Is this something where you'd want to try a help roll?
Oh, potentially.
On a 7+, you can have him take a +1 forward, but on a 7 to 9, you're implicated in the results of what Trank does. So you're kind of held responsible for what happens.
Okay. Yeah. What do I roll for that? I'm looking at my sheet. I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, it's your links with Trank.
Okay.
So it's 2 dice plus however many link you have with Trank.
I have 1 link with Trank.
Hey, that's good. You got it.
All right.
So Trank will take 1 forward.
But you are implicated.
Yeah.
But shared victory, shared defeat.
Okay, so I'm going to roll hit the streets. Great.
That's not bad. That's a 7.
No, it's all right. It's all right.
You made it.
Everywhere.
You made it. Without that +1, you guys really would have been boned.
Yeah. And thankfully, because I'm hard to find, I only have to choose one.
So what are you going to pick?
This feels thematically like it's something that would take time to put together. Because if you're going to be meticulous about it,
I'm gonna disallow. This is gonna take time to put together because as long as they're working credentials, it doesn't matter if you get them 5 minutes before you walk out the door.
Oh, okay, right.
You know what I'm saying? As long as they're functioning credentials, it doesn't matter if you get them now or right before the job starts. So that kind of negative has no effect on the mission.
So I kind of built Silver around the idea of, he kind of attracts attention wherever he goes. So maybe that one, especially since we're getting really close to his former employers by he's losing a contact through his employer that wants to kill him.
Yeah, so that's fair. I think that works. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna note that there's some unwanted attention that comes through for this job. Okay. So what's going to happen is he's going to say, yeah, I remember, and I haven't forgotten. He's like, listen, I can't put you on the work rolls because then something happens. My whole crew, they're all out of work. I can't do that. But what I can do, I've got some old badges here. You can take them apart. If you got somebody who's pretty sharp, they can put together something that'll get you through the turnstiles for the day. After that, it's on you. All right?
Okay.
All right, so you guys have basically model badges that you can use to reverse engineer working credentials that will stand up to going through the turnstiles and doing the thing where somebody's like, badges please, and you hold it up. But if somebody actually runs a personnel scan and searches for a personnel file, it's gonna bring up somebody else's face. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right, does it sound good?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. So I think we have a couple of different approaches here. So what we're going to do when we'll regroup right at the start of the next session, because we're probably going to talk a little bit off screen about what were exact approaches, and we'll dig into that and make any last minute legwork rolls at the beginning of next session. But in the meantime, I think we've gathered a good amount of information here to get ready to move on to the mission phase in the next session. But yeah, is there any last minute questions or anything that we want to clean up? Any of the characters?
What are we going to do with this guy when we get him?
You're taking him to a safe house. It's like a theme hotel, the Lone Star Hotel that's in the tourist district. That's in a super nightlife-y, touristy area. So it's some place where even if they find out where he's staying, they can't like roll in with force without attracting a shitload of attention from very expensive people.
Do any of
Then
us?
what?
Do any of us have a car? How are we moving him?
I have a motorcycle.
Mm.
It goes fast.
He's sitting bitch on Analog's motorcycle. But yeah, we can work out some of those kind of logistical things. And in the meantime, I'm gonna put a link to the system in the show notes. Check out the Sprawl. It's a great system. We're finding our feet, but we've gotten good engagement of the system, and we're gonna hit the real fun the next time when we actually go out and try to reverse kidnap somebody.
I think it's still kidnapping.
Yeah, it's like benign kidnapping.
Mm-hmm. Well, we don't know what's going to happen once we turn them in, so it still could be not great kidnapping.
But we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We're
Everybody
not
watching at home-
kidnapping. We're unabducting him.
Yeah, we're abducting him.
We're liberating him.
Yeah, in a manner of speaking. Everybody watching at home, thank you very much for joining us. Check out Session 0 if you want to know a little bit more about the corps that we've built out, including the Space Elevator Authority, Global Set, and Global Sec, which we're interacting with in this mission. And gentlemen, thank you very much for hanging out and being such great players. And
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Until we see you all again, always be running.